Okay, natanong asa Nikki Kim Anspak Kaniaki. Good afternoon, good morning, good next day if you're watching this at a later date today than Wednesday. The first thing you will notice is I'm not Theta. I'm Theta's sister. My name is Lori Newbreast, and I'm coming to you from the Blackfeet Indian Reservation in Montana. And welcome to a Wellness Wednesday. Um, uh, Theta currently is on this platform. She can't get on it. So you could say it's the cosmos. Whoops, that went my phone. I will just silence it. You could say it's the cosmos. You could say it's the gods. You could say it's the megabyte. You could say it's the internal universe that we're in right now. But she will be back as soon as she's back on this platform. But she is on Instagram, so you know you must be versatile as a native person. So today I want to start off with I learned this lovely technique from a beautiful person that lives on the other side of the medicine line, otherwise known as the Canadian border, um, named Kai Cheng. If you want to follow them on Instagram or any other medium, but just follow along with me. So we're going to start with you are going to start with your left hand, and am going to start with my left hand. So we're going to start off just to all get us in the same cyberspace together, this point in the universal time. We're going to start off with a slow wave. So you're just going to slowly wave to all the folks out there that have joined us from Wellness Wednesday. Okay. So now we're going to have another slow wave with our right hand. Just as we all come into Wellness Wednesday. And maybe I'll just center you. Some of you may know that are familiar with the eighth generation or with the success, really. I think that was a lot of, I think, a turning phase for a lot of Indian homes, right? We moved from Pendleton to the acrylic blankets, and then suddenly eighth generation exploded, under the leadership and the artistic creativity of Louis Gong, right? So this is a Louis Gong blanket, eighth generation, and it actually comes to me. It was gifted to me um, by the Seattle Indian Health Board during their youth event that both Gene Tagabon, those of you that have attended Native Wellness Trainers, so he's a board member and also another trainer. And so they gifted us this blanket, right? So very specifically, everything has like kind of a story. So this blanket, I had to choose, am I going to leave some of my clothes in Seattle and get this in my suitcase? And so I thought, well, I'm just going to take it on the plane. Somehow I will get it in its box home. So, but it's a beautiful reminder, I think, of that NWY. It's kind of like you have all these beautiful. I have all these beautiful memories of past events where, even as a participant, um, last century when I started in wellness and on my wellness journey. But there's just like touchstones, right? So during this time, I have it over my backdrop, and it reminds me really of that through all the generations right now, in whatever community you're in, whatever spot on earth, whether you're related to them or not, but all the generations right now, we are in a moment where we're experiencing a lot of changes. The earth changes. We're explaining, maybe some of you like job changes, family changes, or like internal changes. And right before I came on this, I was listening to a um, they're not native. You know, some natives, non-natives have wisdom. Now, you should have chuckled. But we can learn a lot from them, either as shared allyship or even when there's harm that has come into our communities or maybe through your screen. Um, that's also, you're being taught something. And part of wellness is learning to open up or to um, receive without, like, for being further traumatized, right? Like, just receive information, but have those wellness boundaries up, or that strategy when you get kind of like jolted because of something that happens. And right now, that's, I think, critically important, but it's also important, just in everyday life. Like, I was thinking about, and right before, Theta called me, and we were kind of going through a menu item that sort of, she said, remember, talk about this, talk about that, talk about that. So I was like, okay, I got my mission. So before I came on here, I was doing my breath exercises, which, and there's tons of breath exercises, so nobody really owns them, because the first breath we are gifted is from Creator. But you could pay for courses. They could pay to learn how to breathe again in your wellness journey, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I always feel like when you're in a space where people do a collective breath towards wellness, a collective breath towards connection, that is so important. So before I came on here, I was a little frazzled. I didn't look like this, and I'll tell you a funny story about how a reusable straw, trying to save the earth, trying to be, consumer with some ethics. I had a reusable straw, and never put a reusable straw in a can of sparkling water and then turn out all the lights and forget you have that straw in the can. So I got poked in the eye. So you might notice a little shadow right here. It's not like I have a fantastic story where, I had to lay down for democracy and I had to duke it out or anything like that. A straw got me with the lights off. So never forget you put a straw in a can, or that don't turn out the lights and try to drink from the can. Anyway, so I was like collecting myself. So right now I kind of have this. I've been using this breath exercise a lot, like even when I'm driving to town, and so I'm going to invite you right now, whatever you're doing, even if you're driving, you can do this. Where you inhale to the count of 5, which I will lead, so you don't have to count, because sometimes when you start counting in your head, it leads you somewhere else. And so I think that's one key to wellness, is being open to support. So I have a couple of people, like on other social media platforms, where I will go, or I have an app, I will go and I will have somebody lead me through like a 3-minute breathing session, right? Just using techniques, because it helps me, and the way my brain works, just to be in the moment with my breath. So I'm going to invite you, and I will do the countdown, right? So I'm going to describe it to you. On the inhale, it will be to a count, and then I'll say pause, and it won't be long, so you don't have to remember how long it is. Even just saying the word pause or in your mind is a pause. And then we will exhale. And when you exhale, you will do it like this, like you're making an S sound. Or you can do it silently. And when you exhale, you're concentrating on your stomach deflating, pushing all the air back out. But when you use this position, excuse me, I have to make sure my light is still on. When you use this position, it is actually doing a lot of work to integrate yourself. It's like recollecting yourself, gathering back yourself. You could think of it, if you've been awake for a couple of hours, maybe you've done a number of things today. If you work at home, if you're in the office, you've done a lot of, or you're at your computer now, or driving. You've done a lot of things today, but getting back in the moment is wellness and experiencing. So you can do this, safely, but I'll do the countdown. So we're just going to do it. It's just going to take a couple of, less than a minute. So to the count of 5, you're going to inhale through your nose. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You're going to pause, and then you're going to exhale. Yay, you did it. Now we're going to do it one more time. Inhale through your nose to the count of 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now pause, and then you're going to exhale to the count, right? Or not to the count, till you're totally exhaled, right? Now sometimes you can do this and you don't have to count at all. You just inhale purposely through the nose, pause, and then, and you yourself, like, sometimes you naturally do that. Like if, in a lot of wellness techniques, there's like if you're trying to do emotional control, there's always a pause. So you can practice pausing, and you do it. A human does it naturally. Like, have you ever, seen a kid like run, like, and their cheeks are red, and they stop and they go, that's a natural pause. So it's not something that that you're artificial that you're doing or unauthentic. And so breath work can really start to be a part of your wellness journey, and it's kind of like something that's accessible, and there's a lot of videos and stuff, but in wellness, that's a core thing, because if you hold your breath, that's a learned response. That's an unconscious learned response. Like if you're in a moment and suddenly tighten up, or you're startled. Maybe your startled response includes holding your breath. And so it's about coaching yourself, and really all wellness, regardless if it's workshop, classroom, degrees, experiential, floating tanks, whatever you do, it's to empower you. To empower you to practice. I always think of it like, and we could use the English word sovereignty, but it's really like spiritual sovereignty. So you always have that good grace around you. You're creating that good grace, and it can start internally with you through breath work. And so during this time, like, I know I know who's performing on Sunday, Green Day and Bad Bunny, but I don't know who's playing football. Sorry, football fans. I ask for your forgiveness. But I know who's performing. But even there, like even during sports, people will be like, so, so even you could practice on Sunday your breath work, just so that and so, but it's appropriate for any occasion. And so when I came on before this, and I was talking with Theta, okay, and she was saying, remind people this, and I was like, okay. So I wrote some stuff down. That's also a technique, because I was one of the people that I could keep a list of maybe like 25 things that I need to do in my head. But what I found is list making of things that help me go through a process, not to try to hold all 52 cards like a card deck in one hand, and it helped me just stay focused because especially if I was like addressing something like in part of my healing journey, or maybe life threw me a little bit of a curveball or a snowball, and so making a list sometimes, not a 20 or 100 things I must do list, but like 4 or 5 things, or sometimes just the top three. So, I want to demonstrate that I was listening to Theta. And she was telling, reminded me, okay, please talk about these things. And one of the things about wellness is, I think, like, you could have a whole theme in your life about um, connections I've made that help my wellness. And that includes yourself, your connection to self. But support and community connections is a part of wellness. So there are some beautiful events coming up right now for Native Wellness Institute. Like next month, they're going to have their Hawaii gathering, and so for those of you that are maybe in a part, haven't read, haven't planned on going, please just go to NWI and you will see those events, because those are connection events. And maybe you can't attend this year, but maybe you want to share it to support like the unknown relative, and make a donation for scholarships or something to that event, or if you have that authority in your organization, maybe one of your staff people needs to go. And part of um, wellness is in and of itself is an equitable event, because it's like if you send one relative to scout out an event, this is how my people survived to 2026. Part of the responsibility of our relatives in the past was to go and find out, so that what was coming in and approaching our home, we would be knowledge about, good, bad, or otherwise. You know, um, and did we need to start maybe being on the lookout for things, or was there something mysterious that occurred that we seen that happened to other nations, and they would come back and report? So sometimes wellness is like that. Like, you bring back wellness when you go to an event, because you're changing the, if you want to say, the flow, the pattern of relationships to your home, to yourself, to your community, maybe to your job, to your colleagues, by simply letting you experience wellness in a community, to share skills. And really, that's what all wellness, whether it's Native Wellness or some of the other organizations, you're building community of wellness when we gather, especially at this time. I mean, all times. When you create that space, the intention, the context, the support is for everyone's wellness. And so it's important to find those during the day. And let's say, during the, I would say, during certain things that even happened at the end of last year, like the area I live in, we were in the Verizon tower got blown over by our winds. So there was this 3 weeks, it was a little over 3 weeks, when there was no service unless I drove 15 miles. So we were like in this little spot. And at first it's unnerving. Yes, it was inconvenient, but it reminded me of, like, okay, well, how can I create those little, like, touchstones in my home, even in my work area? Because this medium wasn't accessible. It wouldn't work. And so what I did is I started putting things in my environment that reminded me of like little touchstones, even when I'm by myself. Of this is sort of like my little place of wellness, right? So one of the young fellows that I met, he was it was such a like a beautiful experience. It it could be like a role model too, or somebody role modeling a change in behavior. So this father, he negotiated with the school so that his son could attend the wellness activity, and then he would, and his son was 10, I believe, 10 or 11, and so then he would report back to his classroom what he experienced. So the school worked with the father, and so he could attend our event. So during that time, during the media or whatever, the tower being blown over, um, I had went to this, and he had gifted me. He made me these roses right out of pipe cleaners, and so every day he would just that I seen him, he just would come up to me at the end, and he would give me one of these. So I told myself, well, I'm going to put these right here, because I could still compose, and so I keep them right here. And then on the last day, he came up to me and he didn't say anything, and we all knew that the time was coming where we'd have to say goodbye. And then he gifted me this. Oh, let's see if I can get it. I think you could see it. It has let me see. It has a buffalo on it, and then, but it's a copper rendition of the Indian nickel. And so I kept those there, even though I was by myself, and like now sharing them with you to remind me of that touchstone wellness moment, where he didn't have to go into a big explanation every day, but we had a lot of fun, and he was a willing little helper, and so that's like a really fond memory I have of being in a wellness event. And every day that just he instantly made a little tradition. Come up and give me a rose, and then the last day he gifted me that rendition of the Indian nickel. So sometimes in wellness, it's that you create your own community in your home, in your space, in your car, maybe in the bathroom. You have to go in the bathroom, shut the door, and create your own space. Have a spa day in your bathroom, and so. But creating connections in wellness is incredibly important. So there'll be one next month. But I also wanted. I feel a lot of gratitude for being a part of this. That the Healing Together conference, which was in, the inception was in 2022, when Mike Duncan, that's the CEO of Native Dads, he said, well, he was gut trained by all these different wellness organizations, so he started calling the CEOs or the directors of that and saying, why don't we all come together? Because we're all healing. So really a unique collaborative was started in 2022, and I just attended as just a general participant. I was just like, oh yeah, this reminds me of the wellness gatherings from the 90s, and when people would go to like Nanakoa, and it would just be like, like 500 Indians just wanting to heal, and sharing our stories and activities and learning more and saying, things like, let it begin with me, we're going to stop the harm, we're going to heal from the harm that's been caused to our people. So I have really fond memories of those gatherings. So in 2022, the Healing Together conference started, and it's Native Wellness Institute, Native Dads, Native American Fatherhood and Families Association, and El Puli, and then White Bison. Katiri's the director now, but Don Coyes, for many people, they've known him. He's been like, one of the, I all see, like, kind of not, I don't like to use that word trailblazer because it reminds me of wagon train. Okay. And there's all kinds of reasons why. But what I imagine is all these people, just like running. And so if you could see them, like they're running with all their eagle feathers, and they're all running, saying, no, we can heal from this. So, like Don Coyas was one of those people, and if you've ever, like had that experience of being around the 100 eagle feather hoop and hearing the story about how it was created from vision and stuff. So it's also him and White Bison, and then also American Indian Cancer Foundation, who is really dedicated to helping our relatives and our communities um, through that journey when that particular, when cancer comes to your family. Because it's not just about one person, it's always a family and a community that experience that journey. But also, how can we help, our relatives, ourselves, in keeping our body, be conscious of like the sovereignty over our body to get that prevention. So it's, NWI, Native Dads, some people say NAFA, but Native American Fatherhood and Family Association, White Bison, and American Indian Cancer Foundation. So since first it was just the four organizations, and then American Indian Cancer Foundation started attending in 2023. So now we're on the 5th year. But it's this unique collaborative nationally where everybody comes together, and it's about wellness. And then we also have the HERS Institute that has really been there since 2023. So that's HERS. If you want to find them, they're based in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And that's really about bringing, that organization, Doctors Without Borders. Well, really, this is mental wellness without outside the walls approach of forming wellness camps. So that's the HERS Institute. Also has become now a steady ally partner in that collaborative. So this year it will be, and I have to look at my other notebook because I didn't write the dates. So it's going to be in August, not in the dead of winter in Wisconsin, because that's very cold. It's going to be August 4th to 6th, 2026, this year, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And right now, American Indian Cancer Foundation, ACAF, AICAF, is going to be the host, and they're constructing a website as we speak. And then there will be a save the date poster, and then the agenda, everything you need if your organization is sponsoring you for that gathering. So during that time together, that community of wellness that's being formed through this, it's a unique collaborative. That's, I think, that word, to experiencing it, this is kind of like the basic value, I think, of that, is we all want wellness. We all want healing, and there's many ways to do it to get to that same place where our communities, again, are well and they're thriving, and we're starting to, it will become a story about the harms that were historically and continue to affect us. We'll be recovered, we'll be healing this end, and there'll be like a long trail for the future generations. This is what they did that worked. This is how they figured things out, how to move wellness forward. So during this time, we all collectively come together, and it's been in very beautiful places. It started in California, and then it moved to Arizona, and then it went up to, we didn't paddle, but then we were, up in the Pacific Northwest, and then this last time in the Rocky Mountains, and so now this time it will be in the Great Lakes region, and it will be a very beautiful time. The weather won't be, you won't broil or anything, because you can broil in the Midwest, but it will be in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So please be on the lookout for all on the social media, but all the organizations will start posting about that August 4th through 6th, 2026 in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. So it's been a very beautiful experience these last couple of years, and there's a lot of fun, but there's also a lot of support for if you forgot how to have fun. Maybe you've never had fun. I hope that's not the truth. Or how do you have fun sober? How do you have fun when you've overcome maybe something that's been holding you back in your life, in your wellness journey? Reconnecting with people who respect your boundaries. What is a boundary? There's all kinds of things, and then there's door prizes, there's T-shirts, there's good food, and really people come to that event. They bring themselves, which that's what makes wellness. The people dedicated to coming as you are, like authentically. And so hope to see you there in August. So thanks again to Theta for reminding me of that. And but I wanted to give some practical or right now things that you can access for your wellness, right? So breathing is important, but also moving. And even if, I don't expect, although, those of you that are familiar with like Sash Collins, on Instagram, um, what is it, Earth Gym? Like he talks about, the land is our biggest, kind of gym, if you want to say, but re-engaging the things that ancestors did. Like, if you have access to it, because some of my neighbors around here, like my neighbor, my relative just across the road from me, well, he's not real close, but just across the road, he has teepee poles leaned up against his garage, right? And so that's what I always think of. Like my grandmother, my dad's mom, could put up a teepee by herself. And now, now in the modern day, and 20 years ago, last century, like I was super strong, so I was, so so I always think when I think of Thosh or moving around, um, you also don't have to go lift every teepee pole, but you could pretend you're lifting one teepee pole, but really it's that concept of moving your body, just using all the parts of your body, right? And right now in January in the Western culture, I don't know. I maybe I didn't get this magic dust on me January 1, but I know a lot of people make resolutions, right? I'm gonna exercise all of January. I'm gonna be buff by the 31st. So, but I think any movement is good. So even if you put on your, your music right now and you move around, but I like to encourage a type of different movement that I was taught, like in indigenous theater, which is part of my background. Like I used to just have these really great teachers, and it's just like, so I'm going to say it to you, like, move like your ancestors. So my ancestors, right? Teepee poles. Women had to haul, they were haul wood on their back. So even like those memories, like you have that genetic memory, right? Everybody's all about, well, historical traumas in our body, you know, give that historical trauma an eviction notice. So, right. So, like, if you just, like, putting wood on your back, lifting the teepee pole, jumping on the horse, have the papoose off. I mean, so, but really, like, moving your body, not in the Western concept of where they see a lot of kinesiology and a lot of gyms are based on this, on square linear movement, right? Square linear movement. And in my past, like I was a power lifter, competed, all that kind of stuff. So that was like linear movement, which there's nothing wrong with a straight line, come on. So, but if we move like the ancestors, so sometimes that's what I would encourage you to do. Like if you see a picture of, like, I don't know, like throwing a net, that kind of movement is usually pretty fun, right? And, or, pulling, right? And so that's really, so I watch Vosh, and maybe if I had a 50-pound boulder, I could go out and lift it. But even like making circular motions with your body, right? But movement should be fun, and it should be also something that you could do in any space. So even in my chair, like I could do some of the movements, right? But just movement doesn't have to be, calisthenics or in a gym bound or in like a linear plane or, dance, right? Dance is movement. And I don't know, you might know them, like you might have that one cousin, but all of my cousins have rhythm, blessed, you know. So even that, like put on your best music, because every Indian I know, like they could get their little groove on, even if they're in their motorized chair, man, they can get their little groove on, or even with their head, right? But movement is so important because, well, when you move your body, you're keeping it flexible. So in wellness, that that is appropriate to all the quadrants: your mental wellness, your physical wellness, your spiritual wellness. Is that flexibility to move out of the space where maybe you're still. And intentional stillness, like meditation, like the slow wave, like looking at pretty things, you know. The other thing I have on here is, now, I have a little monkey. Monkeys were not indigenous to my people. But even that, like having this type of thing where my eyes could enjoy a little, like a little, kind of little fun. Because I'll see this little monkey as fun. So even if you have fun images because your eyes too, it's important to move them and to give yourself a break, from the screen, to reorient yourself to the present. So even unless you're driving or operating heavy machinery, or driving a rocket, or I don't know, or using a chainsaw, but you could do this exercise like right now and find 5 objects intentionally and just take a beat. So just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and orientate them and orientate your eyes to those objects just for one beat. So you find 5 right now where you're sitting. 1, and then I can look at 2, another object, 3, 4, 5. And that's a technique. Like maybe you're hearing things, maybe you've had a lot of input and you're taking a break, and you go and you do whatever you do on your break. But if you simply take a pause and orientate to the space you're in now by looking at 5 points, it helps through your eyes and all the cranial, if you need the explanation, all the cranial activity that's happening. It orientates you back to one space, so you're not sparking off. And particularly in this medium, it's really important to take those breaks. And that's all they are. You're not going to be deprived. Nobody's going to take your device. Um, it's not that, but just those pauses are wellness for this time now, where so much of what we're getting, um, okay, I guess like uh, everybody knows what a lottery is, like gambling, rolling the dice. So that's what social media is. You're not sure what kind of images are going to come on there. You can screen them, you can filter them. They have a lot of good filters. But right now, you don't know what you're going to be presented with. And it's also creating a shared experience across many miles in many communities when we're all saying the same thing. But orientating away from the screen is also a part of wellness because it helps you to have those pauses, helps you stay engaged and connected and better. So I had this discussion with a parent about their child, and because I knew that child, like they used to take their pause, you know, and they had enough, they practiced like self-regulation because the child would take that pause naturally. They would go find a sunspot and they would sit there. And but to take a pause, like a mindful one, also is you can figure out what's right for you, what would work for you in that. Some people it's walking. Walking is part of their pause, particularly if they've sat for a long time or maybe they've been housebound. And I know people during the pandemic that they created not little park horses, but that they had a trail. They made a path through their house just so for the times when they couldn't go outside, and living in the northern climate, sometimes it's not safe to be out there, but most of the time it is. But maybe you just will also want to have the option to create that path in your house or in your workplace. Even prior to the pandemic, I was in a lot of business spaces where their norm was to have walking meetings, because walking and talking was a way for people to stay engaged in a way that wasn't so static, because it was being static that you're in a receiving mode and you're static, so it's not being processed out or it's not being fitted somewhere else. You guys stay flexible, right? Flexibility. So to find what is right for you, those pause moments. I think right now there's many techniques. I have a friend there in the creative arts, and before every audition, they make sure they drink 8 ounces of water. Drinking a glass of water is also a pause, and water hydration is a real deal thing where it helps everything in your body connect better, because water, which we're made up of a lot of, but it also can help like for emotional regulation. And it depends on whether it's room temperature water or cold water. Or some people drink, they'll boil a cup of water and like they don't have tea or anything, but they'll drink warm water. And warm water doesn't shock the throat, because the tightening and a lot of wellness and like being conscious of the body is to be concerned with the throat. A lot of things. This is a very powerful center in our body, and so sometimes lukewarm water or room temperature water is a thing that maybe feeling somehow. Even if you had too many cups of coffee or too many cups of tea. Sometimes people think tea is like the meditative drink, but if you know any of those two or three bagger tea drinkers, oh, that's like, they can handle any espresso after that. If you know those people, and then so I do know some of those people, but maybe you had too much tea or coffee in the morning, and so like a room temperature glass of water, it can really also relax this part. And so it's like on the head, and you start coming down here, there's a lot of connections down into your body, and nerve connections. So it's also a way to soothe your nerves, really just a room temperature cup of water. And so that's something that's attainable for everybody right now. even leave if you, maybe you chart your water by water bottles. You know, that's okay. You know, we're all in process. But maybe you want to leave it outside and not have it ice cold, because one of the effects that cold water has on your can have on your vocal cords, it can tighten them, and it sends a physiological, right, message to your brain. And so right now, it so like maybe take a healthy risk. We use that term a lot in Native wellness, but all in a lot of wellness gatherings, and have just try it, just like a room temperature glass of water, as a pause. Just find out, pay attention to how you feel after you empty the cup, and so that's a technique that is like attainable, and it can really help. And I use it. I like to tell people, and if you've been in a workshop with me, I freely say this: I'm my own experiment. And then I had some people outside of wellness say to me, because of based on their beliefs, well, you chose to be born during this time, and it was kind of a way to not minimize or dismiss, but it was a way to minimize or dismiss also. And so I thought about that. I thought, let me just listen, but not respond, not infuse into my wellness path. Let me just listen to what they said. And so, yes, I had some sovereignty in being born that Creator gave me to live during this lifetime. And I did not choose to be oppressed. Because I think some of what is coming into our communities about from some people that are dedicated to wellness, they're dedicated to prayer, they're dedicated to their practice. I did not choose to be oppressed. And when you in wellness, like let's say something happened to you, like some harm came to you and you're healing from it. This simple, taking your right hand, you can do it with your left too if you're comfortable, but with your right hand, you put it over your heart right now, as long as you're not driving, etc. And you just say to yourself, you could say it silently, I did not choose to be oppressed. And then you start like checking in with your body, what that feels like. And literally right now, like I could feel the emotion coming up. And that's what we can do for each other in our communities. We can tell ourselves. So when we get those messages that it's like some people like shorthand it and say it's blaming the victim. Well, I'm not a victim. I am not a victim. And I choose not to be oppressed. There's a lot of emotions that this simple thing, and in wellness, it could also be like, you could say, I choose not to be exploited. I choose not to be harmed. Because that's flipping around that script, but it's really, I choose not to be oppressed. And that means that not internalizing those messages. So people talk a lot about wellness, and then some people like they're taking it a grain of salt at a piece of a grain at a time. Well, I'm going to work on maybe my because this I also had to decide, right? I choose not to be a cusser. Right? That was when I was a kid. That's the way I could express my anger and disrupt, because I was harmed as a child, right? So you know, when I say I choose not to be a cusser, that's something that it wasn't really me. So those of you that know me, you may, unless something really happened, you may have never heard me cuss. But because in processing what happened to me as a child and that anger that I could not express safely, just say, you hurt me, or don't do that to me, or don't touch me like that, or don't make fun of me, don't belittle me. That there were periods in my life when that was unsafe. So using this body position is also something that's attainable for wellness. I choose my wellness. I choose healthy self-talk. I choose fun. I choose friendship. I choose connection. It's your body, right? And so the simple gesture, right now, if you put your hand over your heart and you say, I choose peace. And given that if you live in Western culture where it's tick tock on the clock, right? I choose peace for the next 15 seconds. That's also an active pause, and it's engaging your whole part, and the spiritual part also of yourself, because you're giving those I messages to yourself. And maybe there's something that during this month you committed to addressing in your life. You know, I mean, it could be anything, but the positive message instead of like the deprivation. Well, that's a lot of change. Sometimes is about depriving people. Anyway, but the other part is adding, enriching, and that's also wellness. So I'm not asking anybody to give up anything they drink or any preference. As you say, I choose to drink more water. That's an enriching. I choose to do breath work. I choose to rest tonight. I learned this phrase, and as we're coming to the end of the power hour today, that from a young man. He's a practitioner in Colorado, and he's Latino, and that's how he describes himself. And so he said, remember, when you go to sleep, you want it to be a bed of rest, not a bed of worry. And so sometimes what a technique that can work is, if you're a worrier, or worrying, it has a function, and that's part of the journey and your discoveries to what does worry function for you. That's your part, right? But you can make an appointment, okay, from 1:05 to 1:08 every afternoon. I'll worry for 3 minutes, and then you close it off with this gesture when you come to 1:08. So you can close off like a practice with this gesture, right? And then now, if you use the other hand, and a lot of people through breath work, they learn like the butterfly or something. But you can also, just orientate yourself back after you close off, like, some type of intention or a pause, you know. Or, I also encourage people, be your own best friend. If your best friend ain't there, good job. Now we can go forward, you know. So you could give your own self a pat on the back, but any touching on the body is a way to close off, like a meditation or maybe positive self-talk or an experience. So as we come to the end of the hour, the power hour, on Wellness Wednesday, I hope that to be in real time. And I used to say one of the things I enjoyed about coming out of the pandemic was smelling a room full of Indians again. Body Axe, baby powder, Johnson's, baby oil, let's see what else did I saw. Escape, all the perfumes, yeah, all at once, all the hair gels. And then, underneath it would be that sacred Indian smile. That was one of the happy moments of coming out of the pandemic when we gathered together again. So hopefully I'll see you in real life or at one of the special events, that are planned around. It's a good day to be indigenous. It's a good day to be Sitsicatepi. It's a good day to be Blackfeet. It's a good day to be a woman. It's a good day to be a good human being. And thank you so much for joining me here today on the Wellness Wednesday. And they will be back connected. You'll be back in the metaverse, next week. So you all have a good day and hope to see you. So have victory today. See you later.